Cindy touched on something that's important. Don't sit on something, wait till our next meeting. One of the nice things about the way we try to organize the SpedPac here is that we have resources from the special education department you can talk to directly about your issue. But if something comes up and you need to get the ball rolling on it, we have the issue forms on our website that you can fill out and we directly send to Cindy and her team, and you will get a response directly from them. We found it's probably the most productive thing that we have. We started out with on paper at the meetings, but it became so popular and so productive that we decided to make it electronic as well. And it's very quick. I mean, normally within 24 hours you're talking to somebody with a significant understanding of your case, the issues, and the complexities that you're dealing with. Okay? So don't forget the issues, Mom. And that's the boss is up next.
Yes. So I don't want to. I don't think I can overstate our appreciation for BPS actually coming to the SpedPac meetings, because these really are parent meetings, and they're making themselves available to us on a monthly basis. I mean, some people have difficulty, whether it's language issues or just being new to the system or running into someone that's not particularly helpful in the district, to come here and be able to get your issue addressed and to get it addressed in a timely fashion so that you're not going halfway through the school year before you're able to get an issue resolved. I mean, I think we all know that our children have a limited amount of years in the BPS system, and we want to use those years to maximize their education and their opportunities within BPS, because once they leave BPS, whether they graduate or if they don't graduate and they stay here till 22, once you enter the adult world as someone with disabilities, it's no longer a right, it's a benefit. And you get in line with all the other individuals with disabilities who are adults, and that's very dependent on state funding, which is done on an annual basis by, approval of the legislature. So special education is a right that your child's entitled to the supports and services to meet their individual needs for them to reach their own individual potential. So we really want to focus on those years and maximize what it is that your child can get out of that. Your child's not entitled to the best education possible, but they are entitled to an appropriate education. And that means an education and services that are tailored to meet their individual needs. Two children can have the same disability and be completely different. So it's not the disability that defines the child, it's the impacts of that disability on the child and that child's functioning that defines what that child's needs are. And so how do we get there? We get there through evaluations, and that's sort of the IEP process at its beginning. Does everyone here have a child on an IEP? I do. Okay. So does anybody not have a child on an IEP yet? Okay. Okay, so if you think your child might need an IEP and you don't have one yet, what you do is you ask the district to do evaluations. Anything that you ask the district, you should put into writing, because if it's not in writing, you can't prove that it happened. And unfortunately, we live in a world that you have to be able to show that what you did actually happened, and the way to do that is in writing. The district has an obligation by law to do evaluations, and it's in all areas of suspected disability. So it's not just academics. Does your child struggle in the area of social skills? Does your child struggle in the area of behavior? Because if your child's biggest issue is behavior, they're not accessible to learning, because behavior is what it is and what it's all about. And we all know that from living with our children, right? So those are the issues that you shouldn't think that it's just about academics. It's about all areas of your child's disability that are impacted by their disability. So there's a lot of areas of functioning, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's academic, it's all of those things. And I know that as parents, we know our children best. And we also know that our children change throughout the years, and their needs can change throughout the years. So districts evaluate when your child is initially evaluated for special education services. There's an annual review that happens, and then every 3 years, by law, the district is required to reevaluate your child. And when you get that evaluation consent form, you want to do two things. You want to look at it. Are they covering all areas in which your child is struggling? Did social skills become an issue and it wasn't an issue before? Has behavior become the big issue and it wasn't before? You want to make the district aware of all the areas, so if they checked off some, there's a spot for you to say, other areas that you are requesting an evaluation in. If the district doesn't have the full picture of your child, and you don't have the full picture of your child based on those evaluations, the IEP is not going to be as effective as possible, because there will be missing information. So you want to review that, and by law, you're entitled to copies of those evaluations at least 2 days in advance of the team meeting. So rather than write a separate letter to say you want copies of those evaluations 2 days in advance, write it right on the evaluation form. I'm requesting copies of my child's evaluations upon completion and at least 2 days in advance. Nobody can walk into a meeting, be handed, mine's probably 7 or 8 evaluations with my child. I couldn't possibly read that information, digest it, be able to listen to what people are saying, take notes, and respond to questions. Not possible, okay? And I'm an attorney, okay? So I hear a lot of information on a constant basis, but we're also talking about my child. So what I say to people is bring a friend. You know, my spouse isn't the best note taker in the world. You gotta bring a friend, or you gotta do it yourself, okay? So, you know, they all have their strengths. We recognize what they are, we use them for what they can. You know, he's good at passing out the baked goods and the coffee, but not taking the notes, okay? So, you wanna make sure that when you go into your meetings, you're prepared. And if you're going into a 3-year re-eval, you want those evaluations and you want them in advance. Why is that? Because you wanna go through them and say, I agree with this, or I don't agree with that. Take a little highlighter. You wanna know what you wanna bring up at the meeting, or what you wanna ask questions about. You know, the scores on evaluations are not the same as the scores that we got as grades when we were going to school. You know, an 85 is not a B+. An 85 is on the lower end of the bell curve when it comes to psychological evaluations. If that's something that people want us to go over in one of our future SpedPac meetings, that's something that I'm fully capable and willing to do. Helping people to understand test scores. It's important, you know, and different tests have different scoring levels. And if you don't know what they mean, you don't know if your child's doing great or if they're doing really poorly. And people can sort of say they're doing on the low average, but it's like, are they low average or are they below average? Because that's something that you want to know. So when you start out your year, you want to know going in, am I in an annual review year or am I in a 3-year reevaluation process? So when it's coming up for your child's reevaluation process, you want to say, what are they going to look at and what do I need them to look at? Because I want to make sure in developing the new IEP that we're addressing everything. Now don't think that if you're in an annual review, if there's something that's come up with your child that's different about them, that you think that there's an additional need that surfaced, whether it's behavioral or social or a struggle in an academic area, you can request an evaluation. Maybe they need help with assistive technology, because now that they're moving on in grade, they're now required to do more independent work. And they need the assistance of something that's text to speech or speech to text, or they need access to a word processor, or they need to wear the headphones so that they can listen to the text. Whatever it is, you want to know that those evaluations are available to you, and they're not only available to you in a 3-year evaluation process. You can request evaluations throughout your child's educational life, okay? So when you start off the year, you want to say, how's my child, what is he set up or her set up to do, and what is it that I need to do as the parent to make sure that they're going to have the most successful year possible. So I have a child, and I'm always happy to share information about who I am. I have a child that has significant disabilities, that's nonverbal. She gets OT, PT, speech, APE, ABA. You know, she has a 1-to-1. She's one of the most significantly impacted kids in the district. You know, she's in that 2% of the most impacted. So there's a lot of information that I've had to handle. And I have to be honest, I wish I'd been more organized about it in the past, but there's a lot of it that comes in. So you try to start every year off fresh. Like, wish I was better last year with the tax receipts too. You know, that didn't happen. So you're gonna start off this year and you're gonna say, what am I gonna do to make this more of a successful year on the things that I hopefully learned from last year and that I can do better this year? What I say is get a notebook, right? A notebook starting in September, and all of the communications that you have, whether it's, you know, an issue with the teacher or an issue about an eval or something that you request. I don't know about you, but my memory's not as good as it used to be. But if I can refer back to my notes and you want to date everything, the time doesn't hurt either. You want to just note, called ETF on this day, requested this, didn't receive it, called back on this day. Because then when it comes down to have a meeting about it, which you can request at any time, it's good to have the backup to show, I've been a reasonable person, I've asked for these things, you haven't gotten back to me, and here's my notes to support the communications that I've had. You can, of course, send emails. At the beginning of the year, everybody that has a student on an IEP should have a SPED liaison. So my daughter, it's her life skills teacher, because she gets life skills class. You don't want to be running after 8 people throughout the day. It's supposed to be a point of contact. Me, myself, I generally email all of them. So, you know, that's just the way that I've established myself, because there's so many people. But you're supposed to have a point of contact. Make that contact up front. Maybe your child's moved, you know, hopefully they've moved on from one grade. Maybe they're still in the same grade. That's fine too, if that's appropriate for them. Maybe your child's moved on to middle school or to high school. Now they're with a whole group of people that haven't been with them before. What are we going to do to educate them to make sure that this year is a successful year and it's not a gap year? Meaning, nobody knew about my child, nobody had the IEP, nobody understood what their needs were, and all of a sudden my child's struggling because the adults can't seem to get it together. That's not okay. So what I try to do is establish communication up front. Communication is key. And what we want to do is establish communication that's collaborative, that's supportive, and that has expectations going and coming. I have expectations that this is what you're going to be doing, and you can have expectations that I will respond to you as well. It's an issue of respect begets respect, okay? We give it, we get it. There's no sense in, you know, I realize we all get emotional, we all get upset because things happen that we don't want to happen, but you want to bring it back down and say, if I was communicating this to someone, how would I want it to be communicated to me? So we try to have to take the emotion out of it and go back to, if I was in front of a hearing officer and I was representing this information, do I want to be coming across as the reasonable parent or the parent that anybody would run away from? You know, so try to remember that. I know it's hard. I know that there have been situations that I've struggled into, but it's just an issue of establish communication early and often. Now, I don't mean often as in every day. It depends on your child, right? My child's nonverbal, so she can't tell me what she did during the day. So we have a communication notebook. If that's something that your child needs, ask that it be included in your IEP. If your child can't communicate with you, but they choose to say, when you say, how was school today, they say, fine. You know, fine. What'd you do? Nothing. You know, saying, you know. Then you say, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more communication than that, right? So what you can ask for is a copy of your child's schedule. Now, we all know that by a child's IEP, the services that they're supposed to be getting under their IEP. You want to see a schedule that reflects that. So I have my daughter's schedule. I know how many times a week she's supposed to be getting OT, PT, and speech. I know what all of her services are. They give me a copy of the schedule to show that they've established a schedule for who's working with her and when, and that she's getting that 3 times a week of PT, or 3 times a week of OT, or 2 times a week of speech, whatever it may be. You want to see that someone's on top of this and we're scheduling these services. You don't want to be starting out, we're October, right? You don't want to be finding out December. Your child is supposed to be getting speech 3 times a week and they've only been getting it once. You don't want to be finding that out in December, because even though the district will be required to give you compensatory services, you're not going to get back those 4 months of your child's life. And receiving the services consistently based on the schedule that they're supposed to get them is going to have the most impact. So as parents, we have a responsibility to make sure that we know what's going on and that it's consistent with their IEP. And if there's a problem, then call for a meeting. And if there's a problem that things aren't going well based on what's going on with the school, we have the special education office that's available to assist us. We have, 8, 9 professionals that showed up tonight on their own time that they're not getting paid to be here to give us the support that we need. I can't tell you how energized and excited I am about Dr. Chang and his team and their enthusiasm to bring about positive change, particularly in the areas of special education and for English language learners. It's incredibly refreshing. When I started out in BPS, special education was on the back burner that no one was paying attention to. And if we had an issue, we were all fighting our own battles individually, There was no one to talk to, no one that would respond to us, and it was like, you don't like it, take us to hearing. We now have people that are willing to work with us and want to improve things for us. So don't let the past shape the way that you act now and in the future, because people come and go, things change. Things can be in a positive light where they haven't been in the past, and if you have someone that's willing to work with you and to try to make things better, by all means take advantage of that, because it could be gone tomorrow, hopefully not, but you know, that's the way life is. You take advantage of things when you can, and when there's positive change on the front burner, we all need to embrace that and go with it, you know, and part of it is coming together as a group. I'm a parent just like you're a parent. We're all in the same boat, we're all dealing with the same struggles. And my ability to support you and your ability to support me is just, it's amazing and it's priceless, and it's sort of, you know, we walk a walk that other people don't, and we have a life that other people don't understand, because as much as they want to understand, they're not living. So if we can come together and support one another and work with the district to tell them, these are what our needs are, this is what's been positive, there have been positives, but these are also the needs that haven't been addressed, and how do we move forward and make that more positive? We have a group that's willing to work with us and to make that happen. And we need to let them hear our voices and to show them that we are willing to work with them as a group of parents. So I think it's just really important to sort of, I know that a lot of parents end up at SpedPac because they're sort of on their last, you know, step and saying, I'm so frustrated and nothing's gotten, you know, nothing's happened. But that really is something to celebrate, frankly, and to be happy about and to appreciate, and we need to use it. You know, if we don't use it, then shame on us, because we've been without it for a very long time. What I would also say is that, so you're starting off the year, set out the communication, find out what's going on with your child's program. Are you up for an annual or up for a 3-year? Are there evaluations that need to be done? Create your own notebook, and then also check in with your related service providers, you know, especially if your child's changing from elementary to middle or middle to high school. They're definitely going to be working with a whole new team of people. Now, we all know that there's certain things that help our child and certain things that set our child off. Share that information with your team, because there's a lot of information that, even though they're transmitting documents, and some teachers actually go that extra mile and will communicate with the team receiving the child, but others don't, and it's not required. So that's up to us. What can I do to make sure that my child's team helps them to have the most successful year possible? You know, some kids, if there's going to be a fire alarm in that building, that is going to ruin their day, that is going to ruin their week, that is going to ruin their whole school year. I remember meeting a little girl in my daughter's class in kindergarten that they didn't warn her that there was going to be a fire alarm. She still talks about it today, and she's in the 10th grade. So there's certain things that other people might think are small that have a huge impact on children, where you could just say, my child does not do well with loud noises. If there's going to be a fire alarm, give them a warning and take them outside. I actually work in a nonprofit with adults with disabilities, and I had an adult at my workplace who was freaked out over the whole fire alarm. So I said his name, and I said, we're not going to do any fire alarms when you're in the building. And if we're going to have one, you and I are going to leave the building first, and they'll have the fire alarm on their own. Made the biggest difference in his world, that he didn't have to worry all day long, every day when he came to that building, whether or not there was going to be a fire alarm. Now, we only have one once a month, but every day he came in, he wanted to know if there was going to be a fire alarm. So for kids, what's on their mind is important, and it impacts their accessibility to learning. So whatever we can do to set them up for a better day and a better experience, then we as parents need to convey that information. And sometimes we take it for granted that other people are going to know things, and they don't. So don't take anything for granted. If there's information you know that's going to help your child, by all means share it. And if they're going to say, I already knew that, great. Now I know you're all set. But what I want to make sure is that you're not unprepared, right? And if we give teachers the tools to help them be more successful with our child, then our child will have a better year and a better experience. And that's what the whole thing is about in terms of how do we start the year off right? We give information and we get information to make sure that we're setting up that foundation for that child to have a successful year. And if we run into difficulties, we've given you the contact information. First, you should be going to your SPED coordinator, formerly known as the ETFs, right? The person that runs your child's IEP meeting. You always have your child's principal available to you. Every principal in BPS, by law, is required to make sure that what's required under your child's IEP is being provided to your child. So it doesn't matter that your child's not general ed. Every principal in the district is responsible for that. It's not SPED is SPED. It's every child is entitled to the appropriate education, and every principal is responsible to every child in their building. And I think this whole issue of inclusion that we've been working on for years and trying to expand is that Boston educates all children.
That's right.
Okay? We don't, and we have some of the most challenged children, but we're about all children. And that's every child's needs being met in every classroom across the district, and every child being entitled to going to the school in their neighborhood. It shouldn't be the SPED kids go to one place and the other kids go somewhere. Your child has a right to go to their neighborhood school and to receive the supports and services that they need. There will always be children for whom inclusion is not appropriate, but that's after you've tried to give them the supports and services for them to be in their neighborhood school and for them to be successful. It's not sub-separate first, and then inclusion. It's inclusion first. That's the first item on the table when you go to your IEP meeting. So if your child's been in sub-separate, you go to your annual meeting or you go to your 3-year reeval, you say, I think my child could benefit from inclusion. Maybe it's not going to be in math, or maybe it's not going to be in reading because they're 3 or 4 grade levels behind, but it could be in specials, art, music, recess, lunch. These are areas where my child should be with their typical peers, because you know what? When they leave school, they're going to be in the world, and the world is an integrated population. And if they don't have exposure to it now, it's going to be more of a struggle later in life. So what we want to do is what the law actually says, which is to include children to the maximum extent appropriate. Now, what's appropriate is going to depend on the child. What we want to do is maximize those opportunities so that they become accustomed to being with their peers, that they become comfortable with their peers, and yes, that their peers also become comfortable with them. I can tell you that my child has been in inclusion since kindergarten, and she's significantly impacted. And I've not seen a better teacher or nurturer in this world than a fellow student. They've worked with her, they've celebrated her successes, and they support her every day in a way that's unparalleled with adults. She's more motivated by her peers than she is by any adult, including me. There's things they can get her to do that I can't. Why not give her that opportunity? Because someone thinks, oh, because she's so handicapped, she should be in sub-separate? Absolutely not. Give your child the opportunity and let them show you what they can do. And let them show you the benefits of that opportunity, not just for them, but for the other kids that they're with, And inclusion has been a big push for us, because for years we've had almost half of our students in substantially separate classrooms. How has that happened? The law is inclusion first. And now we're trying to change that. And we have an administration that's working with us to change that. But we also need parents to know that they're entitled to it, and they should start asking questions about it. I'm not saying if your child's been in sub-separate for years that you throw them into an inclusion class and see how they flop. No. Maybe you introduce them into certain aspects of their day, or maybe they go into that classroom, but it's with support, because they couldn't handle it without the support. That's the way it's supposed to happen. And then while they're remediating and dealing with their challenges, they get those supports, and as they make progress, you're supposed to fade those supports away. That's what special education is, getting that child to reach their own individual potential with the appropriate supports and services that they need. So, those are the things I hope that parents would focus on. The only other thing I would add is that one of the big focuses of SpedPac for the last several years has been the area of transition services. And by transition, I don't mean transitioning from middle to high school. Under special education law, transition services are once a child turns 14 years old till they graduate or they turn 22. And with that becomes a new process. that's an evaluation process, and also the development of a transition plan. What does your child need to be the most independent in life? Is it more work on the academics? Do we need to focus more on social skills? Are we talking about more life skills? Maybe your child's brilliant in academics, but if you asked him to go down the store and navigate that by himself, he's not going to be able to do that, or go to the bank, or go to the library, or go to the store and purchase some items. Is your child able to navigate public transportation on their own? Well, if they're not, travel training is a part of transition services. Transition services is based on the interests and the preferences of that child to prepare them. Special education is all about future education, further education, future employment, or independent living. Now, all of those things apply, but maybe they don't all apply to your child. I know my child's not going to college, but I want to get her to the highest level of independence that I can get her to, because I'm not going to be around for it. And so the furthest I can get her in life, the better I'm going to feel about her being able to survive once I'm gone. And for other kids, it's going to be, how do we help? Maybe they could go to college and they could do the academics, but they have no executive functioning skills, so they can't figure out their schedule, they can't figure out how to get from class to class, they're not going to be able to figure out the bus schedule, they can't get up on time, they can't pack their backpack, they can't, those are other skills you need to focus on. That can all be part of their transition plan. And there's more of a focus from 14 to 22 on those types of things. For my daughter, we're focused on the basics, We're still focusing on hygiene and dressing and, making a snack and those types of things. For other kids, it's going to be, getting their organizer together, or figuring out how to go onto the computer and pull up the MBTA website and figuring out how to get from point A to point B, what bus you have to take, what train you have to take. And BPS has services that will take them on those trips to get them to a level of independence that they're not actually at. I think the biggest struggle in life with having a child with special needs is you don't know what you don't know.
That's the truth.
And there's so much that we don't know. I'm still learning. My daughter's 16. I started out this process, I was already an attorney. I didn't know anything about special education. Then I read all that, and then I went to my team meeting, and none of what the law said was actually what happened. So then I had to figure out reality from the law. And then there's all these other things that we want to help you with throughout this year to understand. There's other agencies that you can access during this time period, what the process is when your child is going to be turning 22. What is it that you can be doing now with your child? We can talk about specific disabilities. We can have workshops on whatever it is that the parents are interested in. We don't set the agenda, we let the parents set the agenda. We're just here to support you in whatever way that we can. We want you to have the most successful year possible, and we want you to know that we're in it together and we're better together. So now I'm going to let John walk you through the website. Okay, thank you.